I'm the founder of a newspaper called Mint, which is India's second largest business paper now still. I did that in 2006, 2007. It's a great question. I mean, you heard some of the amazing factoids about India this year, right? If you look at what's happening, what are the discussions at Davos, there's a lot of uncertainty around the world. There are a couple of wars going on. There's fears about energy. There's obviously the climate issue, which is a long-term issue. But the India story is actually one of the few major economies in the world that is going to be very stable, right? We talked about between 7 and 8% growth. In a year when a large part of the world is going to have elections, right? US, UK, Indonesia, South Africa. There's a lot of uncertainty about what might that mean in those countries. India is going to have an election, but everybody's very comfortable about the long-term stability and growth plans and all of that in India. So it's an interesting beacon of stability that is not there in large parts of the world, including in the US right now. And that's a story I think that needs to be told in a more emphatic manner. And to your point, Western media covers countries, parachute journalism kind of way. They may have 5 people, they may have sometimes just one person. They telegraph in and do something. And sorry, you knew? Okay, sorry, I thought I'm loud enough. But and oftentimes that perspective is different, right? Because they're writing for a very Western audience and they have a point of view. And I think a lot of countries, India is not an exception, feel like that's not the whole story. Right? They tend to be more negative than they should be.
And for good reason as well, I guess.
I mean, there are always, media's job is to point out what's working and what's not, right? And so if they do it accurately, I think that's fair. A lot of times the response tends to be around, we're not going to engage because we don't like your point of view. But they will still write the stories. And I think the question for India writ large is like, how do we get our story across in parts of the world that matter? If you look at what Russia and China have done, there's Russia Today, there's China Today. There's actual media publications around the world that bring the country's perspective. I think India could think about doing that rather than just kind of relying on Indian media, saying, where is our voice coming to kind of give these counter narratives? The Joint Secretary gave some amazing examples. I will tweak it more in a little bit more finite way. The median age is 27.6, not 28, right? Which is even better, right? The airports, 74 to 148, but they're going to 230 in the next 7 years. Take pharmaceuticals. India is called the pharmacy of the world. It manufactures like 40% of the pharmaceuticals, and we distribute them in 160 countries, right? If you take energy, there's a lot of questions in the West around let's walk away from coal. But India has been very pragmatic, saying that we need to have sustainable, inclusive growth, which means that we need to also figure out what to do with coal as we drive towards renewable energy in a big way. Right? So for everything where the world sees it as like a problem, I think India seems to have a very realistic, practical answer to it. So the question to then think about is, what is a institutional country way for India's voice to be much more active rather than relying on the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, Prime Minister Modi gave a pretty fantastic interview to the Financial Times recently, right? But that happens ever so often, but consistently getting that Indian message across, but thinking more in multimedia, right? Because as a young country, I think India needs to think about podcasts and video and all of that, and those resonate. I'll give one factoid and then I will stop. 13 million Indians traveled overseas last year. That number is going to go to 90 million in the next 10 years. And their top countries will be UAE, which is number 1 country. US is going to go from 5 to number 2. Australia is going to go from 20 to number 10, right? You're going to actually spend a lot of money in these countries. So why shouldn't we have a message and why shouldn't we have a positioning for India that takes the incredible India messaging, but actually spreads it across the world?
It's all about positive narratives. What a powerful statement made by Rajendra Sethi here. Yes, thank you, please. And we deserve more leaders like you, again, leading the narrative of India in a very positive way from a global perspective. And it's also very evident that he's founded the second largest business newspaper. Look at the way that he did all those factoids. He knew every single one of those numbers by heart. So thank you so much for sharing with that. We come back to you in a bit. Next, we move on to somebody whose name is synonymous with the legal profession in India. If you go to any business house in India and you ask, who should we consult for tax? I think the first name that would probably come up for is Nishit Desai, not just for tax, perhaps for.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So generous. I'm flattered a little bit, but thank you.
Yes.
I thought I was going to be the last speaker because lawyers have a last word,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't matter for time being. By the way, just as an introduction, I'm the founder of Nishit Desai Associate, which is India-centric global law firm. We have office in Palo Alto, New York, Munich, actually, and Singapore, outside India, several places in India. But most important thing is that we are a research-based law firm. Almost 40% of our time we spend on research, academics, thought leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And the way in which we do that is to look to the next 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now and look at what new technologies will be coming, what will be the new social, political, economic, and other kind of developments are likely to take place. Because the future may be uncertain, but not unthinkable, as you all know. So based on that theory, we look at a lot of those, and we have a number of engineers, doctors, other people who contribute to the whole thing. They are all lawyers, though. So what we do, we try to visualize today the future strategic, legal, tax, or ethical issues, and write a lot of papers around that. So whether it's ChatGPT or private space or anything you take, by and large, you find some paper for us. And I would humbly say that, for 5 years in a row, Financial Times of London ranked us at the top in all of Asia as most innovative law firm. And then after we thought 5 years is enough, so we don't want to compete any longer because others should get a chance. So, in fact, Korea and many other countries invite me. How can a law firm become innovative? Okay, we just launched a NIDA, which is ChatGPT 4 based internal ChatGPT for firm members and lawyers. So I think those are kind of things. But the most important thing I would like to tell is that time has come to teach people how to imagine the new world. Okay, how do you? There's a whole process of imagination. Everything starts with imagination. I remember even in olden days, people had imagination. One of my most favorite guru was Vinoba Bhave. I don't know how many of you heard that. In 1955, after we got independence, he said, time has come to go beyond Jai Hind. Now we have to think of Jai Jagat. That's how he came up with that. And
for all
he
those
was
who did not understand,
most saintly politician ever. He has been my inspiration for globalization. I did that. But I believe that India should begin with imagination. And how do you want to imagine? A lot of philosophical thing goes to with that. So, for example, we are a great exporter of philosophy for a long period of time. We are not liberated because from philosophy emerges your mission, vision, strategy, and all those kind of things. And philosophy is a great exportable product for us. We have exported a lot of ideas, and I would love to talk with you all about some of the ideas that I have. But for the time being, I believe that from the Jugaad mentality, I think time has come to think more innovative. And within innovation, again, we need to change the concept. Me Too companies came because imitation is best form of appreciation. We did that very well, no doubt about it. We took ideas, but I think now we need to come up with original ideas from India. And I think whole ecosystem we need to build people that think original, be bold, And a few things I would love to talk about is on the concept of war. If one export I would like to do about the concept is non-violent wars. Okay, what is the purpose of war? You kill people? Okay, that's fine. Instead of that, make them defunct for 30 days, 40 days, you win the war. Because after winning the war, what do? You acquire territories, but then again, privatize, and your former enemies are the holders of those assets. It's, whether war makes a sense. I think India has a major role to play, and we are the most credible country for export non-violent as a positioning. Like yoga, we exported, and I think our soft power will be non-violent concept. Can we create weapons which are non-violent? okay, achieves its purpose. And one of the biggest worries I have in the world today is that we are so excited about autonomous cars and autonomous vehicles and all that, but I think autonomous weapons are going to be a major problem. I can create a gun with a bullet, your name written on it, it will go and find you out and kill you. It can all happen if data is compromised. So there are many things that we can really talk about, but I think the time has come when we think really innovative, imagine the world, and even in mythology you'll see a lot of ideas, they are all becoming real now. Okay. So I think power of imagination is the first thing, and then how do you take it to the real stage and then really work on that. That's a hard work too. I don't want to go too long at this point in time, but we can together imagine something. I would love to have ideas from you all. You are all brand ambassadors for India. We'll be really delighted to interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the biggest takeaway, personally for me, is you mentioned that we sent yoga out to the world, but maybe we could not monetize it the way, say, Lululemon did with their yoga pants. But maybe philosophy as a service, the way you say it, we are a credible nation when it comes to putting our philosophies out there. So if you're able to put philosophy as a service out there and monetize it, hopefully, that can be a major revenue earner for our country.
Philosophers, by the way, could make maximum, people from things like anthropology and all. Just to give brand name to a company, people charge millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Just to give name to a product. Okay, similarly, philosophy is the best decision management tool. In business schools, it was not taught earlier. Now I believe it is being done as a side course. But I remember that every chairman's statement, company's chairman's statement, first paragraph is on philosophy. Then it goes into strategy and all that.
Yeah.
But how many case studies do we have that links up philosophy with the outcome?
Then absolutely. I'll pick your brains on the philosophy of the professions itself. But till then, we come back to the fourth speaker that we have with us on our panel today. I'm sorry. Firstly, I apologize. I completely, in the heat of the moment, forgot about the Dutch-India collaborations. But let me do the introduction properly. So Edith Norman is currently serving as the managing director at ACJ International in Amsterdam. My favorite city. I love this city. They're beautiful. And she's a member of the Task Force on Future of Work, Skilling and Mobility under the B20 of the Business 20 of the G20. I would love to hear from your perspective as somebody who goes to India 4 times, 5 times a year and sees the country from outside, as an outsider. What is it like working in India? What are things that if, for example, 10 years down the line, an Indian was to write a book about Edith Norman and her adventures in India, what are the things that would be highlighted from your perspective? I'd love to know.
Yeah.
You can first.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I love going to India. Every time I go back, it's like, when can I come back? In the plane, I'm already planning my next visit. So that's the warm feeling that I have. You're saying that I'm an outsider. That's very true. But on the other hand, I really feel part of the family.
Yes, love it.
Really, every time. And I've also received as part of the family, every single time. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, dear esteemed panelists, as the chairman of the Netherlands India Chamber of Commerce and Trade, and through my active involvement, that was also your question, in the G20, particularly in the B20 Task Force for the Future of Work and Skilling, I have been privileged to witness firsthand the transformative journey of a nation that is making waves on the global stage, India. This experience has not only enriched my understanding, but has also profoundly inspired me. Reflecting on the roots of India's remarkable ascent, because that's what the world is asking itself, how did that go? I recall a pivotal moment during my visit to Delhi. It was when Chandrayaan-3, India's ambitious lunar mission, achieved a historic lunar landing. The collective joy, pride, and sense of accomplishment that enveloped the nation was not just about scientific triumph. It was a symbol of national unity and ambition. This moment was a powerful statement and testament to India's boundless energy and commitment to achieving the extraordinary. The fervor and collective will to excel set India apart. In India, there is an inherent desire to strive for the best, not just individually, but for the community at large. Parents instill their children to an ambition to excel, who in turn are motivated to make not only their parents, but the country proud. This cycle of aspiration and achievement is a quality that seems to be dimming in the Western world. And there we go, where such unified ambition and collective enthusiasm are less and less apparent. India's journey to being the world's fifth largest economy and climbing up to 3 within the next years, with aspirations to even higher, so it will not stop at 3, I think, is not just a story of economic growth. It's a narrative of a nation driven by inclusive and joint efforts. And that's also a huge difference, which Prime Minister Modi also mentioned during the G20. I had the great privilege of being there when he addressed us. And it's this eye of inclusiveness that is really stressed and makes a huge difference. As I had the opportunity to observe how these qualities were not only instrumental in India's impressive presidency, but also in shaping its path to global prominence, and that's what we are discussing here today. It's the role as an economic powerhouse, an innovation hub, a cultural beacon, a leader in sustainable practices, and a growing geopolitical influencer. We must appreciate these achievements within the context of India's spirited and unified approach. It's this collective drive, this national ethos of aiming high and working together that truly encapsulate the essence of India's success story. In conclusion, let us draw inspiration from India's example as we engage in today's discussion. India's journey is a vivid illustration that with collective spirit, inclusive efforts, and enthusiastic attempts, we can create a world that is not just economically robust, but also culturally rich, environmentally conscious, and globally inclusive. One world, one family, one future. India is not just living this vision, it's exemplifying it. And that's what I love most. Thank you very much.
So, as human beings, essentially love getting compliments. I think on behalf of the entire country, that felt like an amazing compliment. So thank you, for that, for beautifully exemplifying what we stand together for as a country and putting it into that narrative beautifully. Really, I am ashamed that I called you an outsider, and I promise that I will never again make that same mistake anymore. But thank you so much for those beautiful words, Edith. We'll come back to you. Hopefully we will get some time. I do not know how late we're running for today's session. But incredible thoughts around the table. I would love to come to our fifth panelist for today, Mr. Bharat Kaushal, Managing Director of Hitachi India. And for all of those who were not aware, Hitachi is the largest Japanese company currently working out of India. And they are currently present in more than 40, I think, verticals that they cut across through. And we already know about infrastructure, power, railways, but also huge impetus on manufacturing and education. I was very, very surprised to, I'm sorry I was surprised, I should have known better, considering I'm from the world of education. But they currently they have a platform that currently works with more than 70,000 schools in India. And here we are looking at ACs and thinking, Hitachi, what a sad state of affairs. So again, apologies on that as collectively as a nation, and I would love to hear from you, obviously a bit of introduction on your position as the Managing Director of Hitachi and how you see the country of where you were born, but the country that you serve as well. How do you see that growing and what you're doing?
Very proudly. Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you.
Well, actually, Hitachi is more than 100 years old in India, and we run across businesses in infrastructure, manufacturing, and in the digital space. In infrastructure, predominantly, it's rail business and energy sector business. And we are not just in India, but globally the largest rail company and the largest power transmission company, having ABB's erstwhile power grid business also assimilated to us, and the Italian company and Sardo and the French company Thales, all coming into the Hitachi rail fold. But you're seeing tremendous public investment fueled growth in infrastructure. And the difference between people who made investments 15, 20 years ago versus now is that at that point in time, India was a cost to cost type market, and you made better margins when you sold overseas. But having established for the first time in the Digital India campaign a leadership position across the world. I mean, it's that moment of truth from a follower country becoming a leader country was a very big change in the Indian mind. And I think green and capital goods industry is another such serious area or a big frontier in which capacity building now is being redefined. The rest of the world post-COVID, for other geostrategic, geopolitical and economic tentativenesses, is not so much talking and focused on capacity building. But what we are trying to do in India with a higher growth rate is to combine the new standard of production and a new standard of quality in India to use large Indian volumes to amortize costs and become competitive elsewhere. I mean, so we are not just doing, just in the railway example, we are not just doing modernization of the big Indian railway network or the metros, but also bringing the bullet train. But we are doing Washington DC out of India, halfway across the world. We've already got that transaction, but we have 5 transactions going in the United States, out of India. That is Make in India showcasing. In the energy sector too, yes, there is, of course, we are bigger in the ultra high voltage and high voltage business, but with energy, mobility, infrastructure, everything being offered as a service, there is a new CapEx plus OpEx model that is emerging in the market, which means that the current IRRs don't go beyond single digits, even if they are high single digits. But when you combine CapEx plus OpEx, you combine operating technologies with digital technologies, then you reach the last mile in every service. So when you talked about education or health or digital payment, where State Bank of India is our partner, India presents a very unique case. Everywhere else in the world, cash moved to digital. In India, only 42% of the country was connected to any form of organized financial service in 2014. We now post about 8 to 10 billion US dollar, 8 to 10 billion transactions a month, and it could go to 1 billion transactions a day because it's very under-leveraged still, which is 60% of the world's online transactions. But India also experimented with demonetization of cash in 2016. In 2023, on 31st of March, the cash number in the economy has doubled. So it's a very unique situation where cash has doubled and India has taken 60% of the world's online transactions. And that is why I say that for the rest of the world, Society 5.0 was followed because Industry 4.0 existed. In India, all forms of the industries exist, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 parallelly. But society has become more empowered and entitled, which is propelling investments come into different industry segments in a more meaningful way. And so you need to focus because green doesn't have global standards yet. So there are transition challenges, there are breakthrough technologies, and there are foundational technology challenges in terms of capacity building. So you need to incentivize the design people, the processes people, as much as the outcome people. And that is why when Hitachi says that, oh, semiconductor is India's great strategy, but magnets which really convert electrical energy to mechanical energy. India has a constricted supply of rare earth, using quantum computing, you can do a lot of change in bringing optimality to magnets and the whole conversion out of India to the rest of the world. And the final point on Gen AI, all hardware had predictive mathematical database tools on it of artificial intelligence. But what we have been able to produce in India on Gen AI as an iterative algorithm on top of the algorithm which was doing the conventional AI has changed the maintenance and efficacy patterns across Europe in power sector and in United States in the mobility sector in a very significant way, just in 1.5 to 2 years, because these sectors have cost to income ratio in the 90% range. So they had very little leeway to expand unless they found better ways of doing it. So yeah, we are quite busy and very excited about the opportunity in India.
So I just thought about, when we're young, we hear this term, jack of all trades, master of none. If Hitachi was a kid going to school, he never heard about this term at all. He was like, sab kuch karna hai. I'm going to do every single thing and I'm going to do it like that nobody else does it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Bharat. Do we have time for going for another round of questions? Yash? Yeah. A little bit? 2 minutes each? So maybe we can do as concluding remarks. But it's so interesting, Yash. How do we ask, how do we deprive our audiences of these nuggets of information and knowledge that we get from our incredible speakers today? We're going to come back for quick closing remarks. So again, coming back to you. One little point, I have a personal curiosity and interest with the way that the innovation mindset sort of pushes a nation forward or has the potential of pushing a nation forward. And of course, you represent DPIIT, and from that perspective, and as a country that basically coined the term Jugaad as frugal innovation. What are your thoughts on it, and how do you think can the innovation mindset push us further into our decade of prominence, as we've all been saying?
Thank you. It's going to be reverse. I'm going to take 5 minutes because I took only 2 minutes.
Okay. Sorry for reminding us of that. Because it's our time, it's your time.
That's okay. And I just want to start where I mentioned about, very important thing, India, moment, and then India as a stable democracy, strong leadership, and and very consistent policies. Again, that is extremely important then we have a very clear-cut plan laid out. It's not like we are doing it in random. We have a Viksit Bharat, our vision 2047 to see India as a Viksit Bharat, and we want to have 32 trillion economy. So that's where we have very clear laid out policy, and that's the reason India is a place where everyone should come and invest. As far as innovation is concerned, again, India is extremely rich in that Jugaad technology, and they are very entrepreneurial ability. And the flagship program Startup India. Yeah. Startup India is one example where we have we are third biggest, largest startup ecosystem in the world with 114 unicorns, and then more than 115,000 startups. Close to 20,000 plus startups coming up every day. One of the best examples, someone spoke about inclusivity. See the numbers where these startups are coming from. It's not only from metro. Each and every district is having startup ecosystem. That's where again how the Jugaad system is converting it a very formal thing. And then people who are demanding job became job creators. This startup ecosystem gave more than 1 million jobs in the last 5 years. This is one story where this is also capturing innovations, providing opportunity for innovation. We have so many examples in startup ecosystem. For example, Lenskart. I'm no more needed to go to a shop to select my spectacles. You have such examples. So there are so many examples, and then you have again examples coming from intellectual property rights, and then we are revamping our system. Of course, there are a lot of works to be done, and DPIIT is doing it. And then if you see the previous, I'm not going to the numbers, but if you rapid increase in number of patents filed and innovations happening in India, so that is again a important thing which is happening in India, and it's all effort to make India as a global player. It's a very important player, and we want to see when we celebrate 100 years in 2047, we want to see India as a very, very big, strong power. And again, two or things I want to really mention, as some of my fellow speakers mentioned about it. G20 success shows India's ability to showcase and then take leadership at world level. We have showcased it in G20, how it was done, and then the kind of messaging it went around as a voice of global south. And inclusivity is again very important. He mentioned about few things, and the basic needs of the entire population is being taken care of. I need to mention that how robust is the food security system in India, how robust is the policies related to providing basic amenities like health care and basic amenities like housing, basic amenities like drinking water. Why I am saying this? These are all very important to have a stable democracy. When we are saying we are going to grow at this pace, it is going to be strong. Unless otherwise you take care of these basic amenities, basic requirements of the population, 1.4 aspiring population, it's not going to be stable. That's the reason I'm reiterating that point. India is a very, very stable, having a strong leadership economy, which is doing everything in a right way. And I take this opportunity to tell the world and all the investors, it's time for you to come and invest in India, not only to cater to the market, which is extremely big enough, 1.4 billion aspiring population. They are meeting out their basic needs, want to experience better things. It's a aspirational population. It's a huge market. Not only the market which you can see, it is also base, manufacturing base. We want to increase. Right now the GDP contribution is around 15% manufacturing. We want to take it to 25%, and you can export to the world. And there are so many companies who came and done it. And then there are so many initiatives like PLI, production linked incentive. And then one more thing I want to mention in telecom industry, you have design linked incentive also along with PLI. Again, the point you mentioned is very important. You need to encourage design, you need to improve patents. So just to conclude, I invite everyone using this forum to come and invest in India. This is a time to come, and it's a stable economy, strong economy, robust economy. You have consistent policies. Time to come and invest in India and then explore. And then you can also grow with India as we grow from 3.2 trillion economy to 32 trillion economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think the founders of Lenskart today would be happy with the vote of authentication that you've given them. I'm also wearing the Lenskart glasses. I think if you're from India, there's a 50-50 chance that you wear glasses from Lenskart. And I don't know if you know that one of the Lenskart founders were also on Shark Tank. But I think even more than one of his Shark Tank startups becoming a unicorn, the fact that he got this seal of approval from you in Davos on this stage, I think would make him happier. So if anyone in the audience is friends with him, please do send him a video. Let's see what he has to say on that. We come back to Raju on that. I want to tap into Raju GPT, if you, for the lack of a better term. And if we were to get into the part of your brain where you have been studying trends in the world of publishing for such a long time, what do you think are the biggest dangers to the world of publishing? What are the things that you think could be the biggest disruptors of the world of publishing? And what you, being in the position of a leader of publishing for McKinsey, what could you do for that, along with your closing remarks for India on the world stage?
Great, thank you. I think a big topic of discussion at Davos this year is obviously Gen AI. Right? I mean, it has significant potential. By the way, you may not know this, but in a recent study, 8% of the top Gen AI researchers are Indian. So it's a huge number already, right? And so it's a pretty significant portion. So that has the potential actually to make a lot of things better, right? The ability to kind of synthesize a lot of documents, a lot of data, the ability to do translation in a country like India really matters, right? If you can take an article in English and without having to kind of have a lot of human curation translate into every single language in real time, GenAI is really good at that. Right? So I think there are lots of benefits to GenAI, but there are also like the ability to create misinformation, the ability to kind of create content that might seem like it's coming from a human, but it's not, right? So there's lots of checks and balances. And a lot of countries are starting to think about what's the best way to regulate, what's the best way to do ethical AI. So the conversations are happening. So to me, that remains like the biggest opportunity and also the biggest threat, if you will, if you don't do it right. But I do want to kind of come back to India a little bit. I mean, and give you two illustrations of like, I think where, again, the Joint Secretary's reference to housing. Housing is an amazing example in India, right? The amount of housing that's being created obviously creates homes, but it's also creating has the potential that McKinsey has looked at to create like 20 million new jobs, right? So that's one. Two, if you use green material, it has the potential to create like more environmentally sound structures that stay a long time. It also means cleaner cities, right? Which is all these are issues. So it's almost like a win-win-win way of thinking about housing in India, which is very different from large parts of the world. And then just one example from, and this is kind of a fun example, we talked about soft power a little bit and how can India tell its story better. Up until a couple of years ago, and those of you who are in London will excuse me for this, the best food Indian food outside India was in London.
100%.
I tell you now, it's in New York. The reason I say that is there's a company called Unapologetically Indian, right? The chef is Chintan Pandya, and the restaurant is Rani Mazumdar. They've opened like 5 restaurants, Dhamaka, Masala Wala, Adda, and Sema. You can't even get in.
Move over to show, now
Right.
we have all of these.
Exactly. You can't even get in. But my point is that food has become a powerful way to establish India's. Used to be that if you eat Indian food once, you may not go to it for the next month, right? But none of these restaurants you can even get in, right? Sema is impossible to get a reservation. But the most interesting thing is now they've started a new restaurant called Nax, which is a Filipino food. So here is a group that is kind of starting off with Indian cuisine, creating a huge market, and then kind of saying, you know what, we can actually kind of bring other Asian cuisines into this as well. So I think that's the way for India to think about how do you influence the world. There's so many things you can do, obviously, with the governing and with all of that, but there are so many softer things you can do with something like food.
You
I'll
hit
stop there.
right on the spot here, and I think what time is it? 2:30 is kind of like a late lunchtime already. Half the people in the room are salivating. Now we've spoken about restaurants you can't get here. Whereas last year at the India Lounge, if you were there in Davos, we had the best food in all of Davos. You got it right. See, I get so much support from all my Indian friends back there. Yeah, we are missing the Indian food this year. What happened, sir? This one's for you. What happened to the Indian food? We need the Taj chef back. No, but on a lighter note, thanks so much for bringing the one thing which is the easiest to get into our hearts and minds, food, onto the table again, and how we can truly win the world over. Maybe not with weapons, but with food, with autonomous food, with autonomous weapons. Maybe food is an easier way to win the world. But coming back to
So on the food, just one concept,
yes.
that we can export our fasting tradition to outside world as well. They eat a lot. And I think on one side we have food, but how to fast. There is a system in India, every now and then, every woman, every gentleman, little less, but we do fasting, and it's considered very pious. Anyway, that's one thing. But if you ask me of all the issues in the world, India and the global stages, as we call it, my real desire is that we should really make non-violence a global voice, okay? And just where ESG or climate did not become fashionable until today we are COP28. Same way we need to have a convention for non-violence and how do you use technology so that we have objectives achieved, but at the same time we are non-violent. And India has the most credible record of fighting non-violent, right? Whatever struggle. So I think that is one point. Second thing is, as I mentioned, philosophy. You can apply to every subject, including culture, okay? Then what kind of culture you want, because every organization talks about culture. Culture
Culture of the
You
organization.
say it's strategy, right? I don't know your language, but a little bit learning from you. So similarly, culture, how do you develop and what kind of culture do we want in the world? Okay. I think one important thing that has happened a little bit in the early stages now is School of Liberal Arts. We have lost sense for liberal arts school. We have a couple of schools now coming up. But I think India has to, if it wants to contribute to the world, then I think liberal arts took a backseat in India. Everybody became engineer, everybody became doctor, everybody became, But I think that liberal arts allows you to become broad-minded.
Yeah.
So I think this is one thing to play a role on world stage. I think liberal arts is a very important part that we need to do. Third point I would suggest is that, the concept can be applied to economics. For example, I am writing a paper. I did the concept in 2014. One world, one tax. You talked about one world. It has become a nightmare around the world. Okay. I don't want to go into details. I'm an international tax lawyer. So I think why can't we have one tax in the world? OECD and everybody says 15% minimum tax. Okay, I said put 15%. But let governments fight out their share. Today I have to fight cases in 100 countries, and I have to deal with each country. I said, why should you want me to pay tax? I'm willing to pay. Tell me how to calculate, what is the formula, and tell me the rate, 15%, I put in escrow account, global escrow account. Now you governments fight out. Let me do my business. Of course, we'll be out of business.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that this is going to go out of business.
But I think I have made my enough money, so at least some point in time we have to preach. Third point, I think we need to really ideate from India, because India is a laboratory where you can and especially for social innovations, where you can have the cost of innovation is low, scalability is high, so you can have proof of pudding within India, but we can export these ideas to Africa and many other countries. I think this is another important thing we need to learn, that today a lot of art happens overseas, D happens in India, because it has begun to happen, but I am suggesting that art should happen from India. India is a great laboratory, as I mentioned, cost of innovation is lower, scalability is high, market is already there, but you can export this. So when we do export of ideas, we should bear in mind that there are other developing countries, other emerging economies to which also we need to contribute. So of course we are very excited about our own economy, we are very proud of what's happening, but at the same time, and only a couple of things that we really need to do, we need to improve our tax system. Number two, drafting skills. Okay, are very poor. I think that's where all the problems happen, and we have to revisit the exchange control regulations as well, and some of the securities laws have become very good by and large. But I'm suggesting that there are few things that we put in place. Okay, we'll be able to export ideas, concepts, lot of things, and including that will take care of logistics, which you just mentioned about. Logistics is going through some difficult time at this point in time, with Red Sea and other things. So last few weeks have been difficult. So, but how do you manage those things is something that we can conceptualize in India and export to the world, because we have a great role to play on a world stage. And I'm an actor too.
Yeah, great. And I feel like today India engagement centers become a bit like Takshashila Light. It's like Guru Shishya Parampara yahan pe bhi chal raha hai. We are learning so much on what the future holds. Leveraging. Of course, we talk about the youth of our country, but the amount of experience that comes out of a country which has had to fight it out since independence, fight it out against the external forces, against norms, and break through with innovation.
I'm 28 with so many.
Oh yes, of course.
Psychologically.
It's the youngest person in the room, of course. But thanks so much for those nuggets of knowledge. We come back to Edith. Edith, last question for you, penultimate question for you. Have you eaten at Miri Murray?
Sorry?
Have you eaten at Miri Murray, at this restaurant in Amsterdam?
No.
Okay, I am booking a table for you the day that you're going back to Amsterdam. He said that the best Indian food outside of India is in New York, Well, I haven't had a lot of Indian food in New York, but in Amsterdam, me and my friend Dave here, we went and we sat down for 4 solid hours. It's made by a lawyer couple, by the way. I don't know what all of you guys are doing with the lawyers in India. They're running away to Amsterdam and opening restaurants. But this lawyer couple went and opened this restaurant called Mirimari. It's stunning, absolutely the best Indian food.
Lawyers
I've
do
had.
everything, you know.
Well, I think I can see that. So,
California pizza was
also lawyers. Yes, that's
I
true.
think we do more than what you think we do.
Of course.
Don't underestimate Indians.
100%. No, I can't, sir. I am an Indian, very proudly so. I think we need the Nishit Desai labs of innovation, where we'll be every day coming up with these, new startup ideas and
You know,
maybe
we
some
have
restaurants.
campus in Mumbai only for imagination. It's called Imaginarium.
Yeah, I haven't. You were telling me
It's
about.
5 acres of campus. Only if you want to think anything in the world that changes the world for the better together, please come to us. And it's a private property for public good, so we don't charge anything. It's a gratis, but most welcome to IDEA. And next time, like this thing, we can do it in India.
Sounds great.
We'll host it.
Well,
Absolutely.
first I'm going to have dinner with you in Amsterdam, and I'm a lawyer too, so.
Oh, there you go. Special discounts for lawyers at Mirimari.
Exactly. So, first of all, I fully agree that investment into India should be done. And as we're talking about the Netherlands and Amsterdam and our involvement, I can tell you, we're a tiny country, 17 million people, which is less than the inhabitants of the 25 million that live in Delhi. Still, and I always, whenever I go there, and I'm speaking a lot in India, and I love being there. So whenever I get to Delhi, I said, I come from a country where only 17 million are, which is less than 25 that you have in your city. So why should you listen to me at all? Well, let me give you one clue. The rest I'll tell you another time, because we are short in time. Our tiny country is the 4th biggest investor in the world into India. 4th biggest investor. And not in percentage, in real money. So the Netherlands has definitely understood and still understands and is with India in investing into India. We have a very close cooperation with India, with Invest India, with Make in India, with also Startup India. So we do a lot, and there is money going into India and also money coming from India into the Netherlands, because India is also the 4th biggest investor into the Netherlands. So we have a very, very close friendship and working together, and we see the future of India. Well, everybody does, but we also work on it, and very much looking forward to even deepening this relation further and going further into that.
You know, by the way, Netherlands and India have the best negotiated tax treaties.
Yeah, true.
So no wonder why should investment not come from
Yeah,
here.
exactly. We're going for the free trade agreement with the EU
Yes.
now, so. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we come back to Bharat. We have, in fact, like a couple of minutes
1 minute,
left.
yeah.
1 minute. So you have to do my job, which is to summarize the session. if you may I please delegate this to you? But I love the way that you have taken all of those very abstract concepts about the world and what also Hitachi does and its role, and summed it up so beautifully. So if I may please delegate my job at the end to summarize today's session and how what we are doing here together collectively adds to India's impact on the world stage, I would be honored.
Thank you, Meghu. Let me give it a shot. But before I do that, I'm also a lawyer by training.
Oh,
I'm not an engineer. I just learned it at work. How to be a good salesman. But I think the India opportunity at a time when there is so much in the world which is not clear in terms of predictability. The lines between B2B and B2C are all getting blurred. So while we say CapEx plus OpEx means B2B plus B2C is where every industry strategy in a large economy should look at finally offering things as a service. There is conventional model that India has played out loud and been super successful, which is open access. Open access and also drawing an equilibrium between what is privacy and what is progress and empowerment and striking a balance somewhere. So from that perspective, the scale, the affordability done with speed in India has been unrivaled. On the other side, innovation is a very big, very big ticket, which has the chance to do a geometric progression on, say, a $3 trillion economy becoming 10 trillion in the journey to 32 trillion. And so far it was, aggregators on one side, asset owners kept isolated. But it's like the traditional Netflix versus Disney debate. Asset owners and aggregators have to find a new sweet spot of convergence. There is no better place than in India. If once they do find it, then you will see that in the same sector, like the rails and energies that I mentioned, you're making 8, 9, 10%, while aggregators offering those services are making 20, 25% sometimes. So this is not a tenable situation. But innovation mixed with the size of the opportunity, which is now accessed already, and delivery by platforms have begun, is going to change where society and economy and all of those lines compartmentalize activity. And that is the exciting moment why we are all here, and in our different ways, we've tried to express the same sentiment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't think the last time I took so many notes was before my 10th exam. I think since then I've never taken so many notes. But of course, we had to, because first we have 3 lawyers on the stage. So I don't know if you're a lawyer as well, or here, thank God. I don't think we could have had any more lawyers on the stage, destabilizing the entirety of Davos. But
Already 50%.
Already 50% of the audience, yes. But
And also diversity is there.
and amazing
Woman
diversity. Also women lawyer, yeah. And people who've gone on from being lawyers to various other things. We just need a lawyer turned restaurateur on the next panel here. Then we would have completed the circle. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Unfortunately, we will not be able to take any more questions because we've just run out of time on our session. But it's been an absolute pleasure spending this hour with all of you. I hope you learned a little bit, hopefully laughed a little bit, had a good time, and hopefully this gives you enough impetus to come and invest in India with your time, with your money, with your efforts. Definitely see you around for the next range of sessions with the New Age India sessions which we are doing at the India Engagement Center all throughout the week. And I would like to thank all of our amazing speakers for bringing your true selves onto the platform and really sharing what it means, why you are who you are today, why you represent the country with so much light. It's slightly different from you, but the fact that you are the 4th largest investor in the country, doesn't make it very different from the rest of us. So thank you very much once again, everyone, and please enjoy the rest of your time at Davos. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. We take a quick photo all together?
Oh yeah.
Yes? Please come. Thank you.